take a seat.
In 1978, you as Prime Minister welcomed the great Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping to Singapore. Since then, you have been visiting China regularly for about 30 occasions. You have been a witness to the extraordinary transformation of China and of China's relations with ASEAN and with Singapore. May I request you, Minister Mentor, to share with us some opening remarks before I ask you the first question.
The transformation of society, which was drab, grey, monotonous, has been nothing short of a miracle. I spent about 10 days on my first visit, and I had stereotype answers. Through all the provinces I went, I had speeches read out by revolutionary committees, all condemning the capitalist ruler without mentioning his name, namely Deng Xiaoping. And I wondered whether this was real. I knew they they did not believe what they were reading, but they had to read it. And you had slogans on the railway station, you had slogans on the rice fields, exhorting you to do this, do that. It was like George Orwell said. But when I visited China again after the Gang of, before the Gang of Four was incarcerated and charged and subsequently punished, once they were out of the center of power, the country began to loosen up. And instead of revolutionary committees where people were promoted on the basis of their revolutionary fervor and what they can do after reading the little red book, they were now being promoted on the basis of competence, merit, capabilities. So slowly over the years, I saw a total transformation of the structures of the bureaucracy, and I saw a return to the old imperial system of the ablest and the best at the top, and at each layer you had men of commensurate ability for that level. It was a transformation of enormous magnitude. I think very few countries could have done it. And in a way, it was possible only because whatever the rights and wrongs of the first 30 plus years of communist rule in China, they organized the country. There was one network that ran throughout the whole nation. And the people were literate, nearly all literate. So when the transformation came, they had people who were easy to educate to a higher level. Over the years, I went back, and each time I saw not just improvements in the physical infrastructure, because that you can get contractors to build, Koreans, Japanese, whatever. But here they were built by the Chinese themselves. Designs of the bridges were not as artistic as the French or the British, but they were solid, good, across the Wampu River, between Putong and Puxi. And there was a gradual pyramid of competence. So today, you can go and you see a mayor of a small city. He'd be about late 30s. That's a kind of career path. Many with PhDs. Then you go to the provinces. There are people in their late 40s and more highly educated. And then in the center, there are people in their late 50s or early 60s. And the competition for the top jobs is intense. I mean, there's a plethora of talent for you to choose from. So I watch them and I say how lucky they are and how unfortunate we are with 3 million plus people and we're looking for diamonds on the seashore. But they got gems all over. And I think that is the secret of China's success. They've got the right people into the right jobs, and it's organized.
The success of China's reform and opening to the world has inspired the ASEAN countries and developing countries all over the world. And they frequently ask, what lessons should they learn from the Chinese experience? How would you sum up the lessons?
First, I don't think the Chinese go around the world evangelizing or proselytizing and say, you follow my system. They are unlike the Americans. They don't want to export their system. If you want to pick up any points from me, I'm happy to help you and show you. But I'm not here to change you or to make you like me, which I think is a great advantage because then many third world countries feel comfortable with them. But for a country to emulate China, the rules are quite simple. You must be well organized. You must have a government whose writ runs throughout the country, from the center of power in the capital to the smallest village. There's a chain of command that goes through. And you must have capable, competent people at every level to execute those plans. And they run a party school so that before promotion, everybody understands standard operating procedure, principles on which the government works, how you interpret policies from the top. And even then, you get certain provinces where they are able to tweak their policies to suit themselves. For instance, Guangzhou, for many, many years, was able to ignore the center and went hell for leather for growth, although the center said slow down. But in the end, the center established its authority. So I would say you can pick up many points from China, but to execute, they must be able to have the same system and the same quality of manpower, human resources.
China's economic reform and development for the past 3 decades has been very successful. So the economic reform mission has more or less accomplished. It's done for China. If Mr. Deng Xiaoping were still alive and in charge today, what would you suggest to him as the next phase of China's reform? Would you say that it's time for China to push for more political and social reform? If this is the case, what would be the challenges for the Chinese leadership? Thank you.
I'm not sure what Deng Xiaoping, if he were vigorous and alive in his late 70s, would want to have as the ideal system for China. But I think the present leaders understand that the path they are going means that the society they are going to govern will change. Today they are still 60% rural. In other words, not so well informed, working in the fields. Every year some 10 million go into the cities, and that number will increase. And when I was in Shanghai with the J.P. Morgan International Advisory Board, they had specialists on China saying that the Chinese are planning 10 mega cities of 40 million each, so as not to take up too much farmland. 40 million is 10 mega cities. In 30, 40 years, they're going to have 70-80% of their population in cities with mobile phones, running videos, internet, satellite TV, instant messaging. And that will be a different China, a different society you have to govern. So you can see how China is moving step by step, adjusting its style of governance as technology brings about, technology which they want to use and must use if they want to progress. Technology will force a change in the nature of information flows. So the difference between the disorders in in Tibet, where they hushed it up and got the foreign correspondents out of Tibet, which got them a very bad publicity, when in fact the Economist correspondent who was in Tibet and was the last person out wrote up the story as they had told it, that it was the Tibetans who started the fight. But because they pushed out the foreigners, they got the raw end of the reporting that followed. And you contrast that with the Sichuan earthquake, where it was completely open. Wen Xiaoping came with a plane load of his own media. Media was given full freedom to report. The enormous well of sympathy and patriotism throughout the country, blood donations, funds, etc. In other words, they are learning as their society changes, and they know that with SMSs, you can be in Sichuan, you can be in Tibet, you can be in Xinjiang, you can SMS somebody in Dalian or Shanghai or Guangzhou or whatever, and the news will spread. I mean, you know about South Korea, how they have organized the young there, and then the young organized the election of a president because they want a change. Yes, they are monitoring the internet. Yes, they will try and direct the websites or close websites. I don't know how you're going to stop SMSs. You might stop the network during critical times, but then you yourself may not be able to send messages to your provinces. So I think they are moving into a future which they know will be different, and they will feel their way forward. But they know that it has to be a different society. They know that it will be a different society that has to be differently governed. And you can see after Wen Xiaoping went to Sichuan, all the standing committee members also all turned up and all carried babies, shook hands, etc. And they were acting as leaders in the West would do because the TV was there. So I believe technology that they want to use will bring about changes which will bring about their methods of change in their methods of governance. Whether it'll be one man, one vote for the president of the republic, I doubt, because I think that won't work. But already at the grassroots level, they have found it useful to have elections for little townships, because then the officials cannot ill-treat or misadminister the villages or the little townships. If you are corrupt, they won't vote for you. So gradually they'll move forward. But what the end result will be, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. But they're not going to rush forward, that's for sure.
Take a seat.